everywhere. GBS.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and welcome to the Insight Night. My name is Eugene Kwach, and of course tonight we have lots of issues to discuss. You're watching GBS TV Africa. You can follow this conversation at GBS TV Africa, at Kwach Official. 21144 is also our SMS line. Tonight we delve into the state of current affairs generally, as we get to delve into a lot of issues. The first issue will be, of course, the scandal of the fake fertilizers. Conversation that has sparked a lot of public outrage, as we had seen even a back and forth between the Mythical Inturi and the journalist Alan Namu. And that is a conversation that we hope we will be getting to delve deeply into. Even as, of course, as we have the conversations around the doctors' strike, on the CBA agreement, what exactly, which way, what way, even as you have the former CS of health saying that some of these agreements were not actually viable. So what next for the doctors? Are we going to experience some other 90 days, 100 days of strike, or even more? So what next? But of course, we're also going to delve into the politics of the day as we get to ask very pertinent questions. What next for Raila Odinga? Why has Raila been silent even on some things that are quite pertinent? And characteristics of Raila, speaking on some things against the government, taking time to look into the government issues and speaking against what he thinks that the government is doing wrong. Now, we're also going to look at that even as we get to look into the UDA affairs of folding Kenya Kwanza affiliate parties to join and become one. Of course, we have a lot of issues to discuss, but of course, that will form the basis of our discussion tonight. Well, join us for this conversation. We do not do it alone. I have Beatrice Kairu joining me for this conversation. Thank you so much, Beatrice Kairu. Beatrice Kairu is a health economy expert. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. It's quite a long time.
Yes, thank you, Coach, for inviting me.
Yes.
It feels good to be back.
Yes.
Yes, as we discuss a pertinent issue that is affecting our current Kenyan society.
Yes.
So that we can see what is the way forward. Yeah, we all in this together.
Yes.
One or another.
Yes, and we are just from Eid Mubarak.
Oh, yes. Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers, wherever they are. I hope they enjoyed it. They gave us a good holiday for us who are Christians.
I've not returned my kanzu, which was meant to feed, but anyway, all is well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making this appearance. And I just want us to start this conversation on the fake fertilizer scandal, because we have seen a lot of discussions around it. Let me just get blanketly, what do you think about this scandal from your position?
It is very unfortunate. It seems that the food security of this country is going to actually be a very bleak future, owing that now it is going to subject to many Kenyans consuming unhealthy foods because the maize harvest will actually be affected. But when you look at it, is that I think it was after the general elections when the president said he's now going to give free fertilizers, and the farmers were a little bit optimistic. Only later on, after the rains have come and people could see sections along Kenya, the maize is not growing very well, it's drying up, and they were wondering how comes the production of the maize is low. So it means had Alan Nyamu not exposed this fiasco, it means the farmers would have blamed it on the rain, all the seeds, and yet what was affecting them is their fertilizer. So it's very unfortunate it had to be an outsider to blow the whistle. And the worst the worst part of it is that the government is now playing PR. When you find a whole minister of agriculture blaming the opposition for such an expose, and yet it was outright that actually even farmers came out and even trying to expose, and even some NGOs which did their own investigation and tested even the fertilizers themselves, they realized actually it was fake fertilizer. So that tells you in itself the government wants to play PR at the expense of the Kenyan people. And what we need to understand is that if the farmer is swindled, it means all of us will go hungry, all the way to the top, because the farmers are the ones that actually ensure that we have food security in this country. So it is very unfortunate, and it was even more unfortunate in Parliament, where we could see our members of Parliament smelling smelling fertilizer. How do you test whether fertilizer is genuine or not by smelling? It shows you the caliber of leaders we have in Parliament. Because we're expecting a lot of testing to be done, and those who have been involved in these issues to be reprimanded. And the other thing is that it is, I think it was the Kenya Bureau of Standards, the MD, now tried to jump into action, reactionary, and claiming we will recall all those fertilizers. And yet it had the Kenya Bureau of Standards label. So how did those fertilizers get the label in the first place? It means it is rotten to the core, to even the Kenya Bureau of Standards, because it means there's a lot of corruption involved. And the funny thing is that this corruption is going to affect all of us. You can imagine going forth, now farmers will have a failed maize season, so there will be scarcity of food, so cost of food production is going to increase. So eventually what happens? There will be many families going hungry at the expense of people who wanted to make money out of double dealing and swindling farmer. It is very unfortunate. Yes.
Thank you so much. And you've just talked about also KEPSA coming in, but there's also been a back and forth. Now, even when Mythical Inturi, they say the CS of Agriculture is doing nothing now. The CS says, no, that is not my problem. It is someone else's problem. What does even this means to even what the farmers are, when maybe someone is just watching, even from outside? Because I think that the buck does not just stop. We have various stakeholders.
Yes.
If the KEPS is not doing their work and the CS of Agriculture is not doing his work, then actually we cannot have what we ought to have. And bearing that, we also understand that food security was a critical component of the Kenya Kwanza's manifesto.
Yes.
What does even this back and forth, this what you now call PR, even portend for the future of Kenya? Because if I can just add, without Alan Namu blowing the whistle, then we could not have known this. So what, again, it even begs the question, what else happens in other ministries, or even in this same ministry, that the CS is unaware of, or rather the stakeholders do not know what exactly is happening?
Exactly. So it shows that there is a lot of rot all at the core of the administration itself. Because apart from the farmer scandals, now we have the doctor strike. The teachers are saying they are roaming strike. CBC education is also almost at a standstill, because even the curriculum is not even well understood. There are all sorts of universities, when it comes to, they are in a lot of debt that yet to be solved. Students who have joined the university are yet to even actually pay school fees being given by the government. So it tells you this administration either doesn't know what it ought to do. And this stems from incompetency. When you put incompetent leaders, that is the result you get. It becomes the shifting of the blame game. Any leader who shifts blame, it always exposes them as being incompetent, because a competent leader would have taken to action and asked themselves, where did we drop the ball? And then discover, this is where we dropped the ball, then this is where we need to solve the problem. But we are finding very funny leaders masquerading as competent individuals, yet every time they open their mouth, they're proving themselves to be incompetent. So because how can a whole agriculture minister start shifting the blame game? Then you also find even the National Cereals Board is also to blame.
Yes.
Remember now that they are also the ones who are participating in this distribution of these fertilizers. So that tells you also this is also a government agency. So it means now we can no longer trust the government, because the next thing, I think recently I saw some medication that is given to pediatrics that is being recalled by the Poisons Board, that has been circulating within our country. So it asks, if we pause and ask ourselves a question as Kenyans, who do we belong to? Can we trust our government? It is reaching to a point that when the government tells you turn right, you are safer turning left, because we can no longer trust you. And the worst of it all, we are being taxed as a country to ensure that government services are running. But now the more we are tasked, the more the government services are failing. Already we know even the scandal of the passport so far. I know they put people to task that would follow up the process, to the point they did a PR of showing us that a printing machine has come on board. So who does that? Like, you have to do a whole TV to show us that a printer has come to print, but yet it is your duty as a government to ensure that you provide this passport. It is the right, it's the right of every Kenyan to actually access these services. So it already bringing a lot of questions. Does this Kenya Kwanza government know what it is doing? They said they have a plan, but is this plan planning? is it coming into fruition? But because it's scandal after scandal after another scandal, so what this is leading is now reducing the confidence of the government among the people, to the point now farmers, farmers may decide if they're being swindled with fertilizer, then they rather opt for another type of farming. So what happens to the consumerism of maize? The scarcity of maize for someone else to import. Remember, now the shilling has come, is now lower, having been manipulated because of the Eurobond. And now maybe someone somewhere wants to import the maize. Remember, there was a scandal of imported maize, remember? And it had also a lot of aflatoxin. And it's becoming terrible for the current Kenyan citizen, because it's like they're now being put between a hard place and a rock. Yeah, where do you turn to? Yes.
Let us assume that this was just because maybe the government agencies that were there did not actually do their work, and then someone did what he did to get the outcome that actually we had.
Yes.
But the question then will be, then what about the intelligence agency? What about them? What did they actually, weren't they aware of exactly what was happening? And if they were, then it means that there is someone who is inside who had actually infiltrated them, because they could have even told the government.
Yeah.
But again, now this will beg the question that now as stakeholders, what should be done next, so that we do not have, or rather what agencies, or rather what, can we do something else so that we ensure that even if there may be intelligence do not report, but we can have some people who can actually know and measure this, because we do not need now a journalist to go and do an investigation for us to understand that there is a problem somewhere. So what measures actually should be put in place from where you sit, so that we ensure that we do not experience this again?
Yeah.
Because there could be many other things that will be happening that have not been revealed by the journalist.
So once and foremost is that Alan Nyamo, before he even exposed the whole scandal, had reached out to the ministry. But the ministry shunned him off and discarded whatever information he was giving. So it already tells you maybe Alan Nyamo was among the few or among the many who had raised an alarm. But the government ignored because it is not public knowledge. So now when Alan Nyamo, being an independent citizen, decides to expose it, that's when now the conversation began. So you've asked me what is the way forward. I am looking at private-public partnerships, whereby now the farmer can have outlets where he can test the fertilizer himself, because we can no longer now trust the government. Because the same government was the one almost selling us sugar that had mercury. Remember when Matiang'i stopped the sugar that was being supplied that had mercury? And we saw several people being fired and status quo maintained. The same thing when it came to KEMSA, when some drugs were being recalled. So that tells you already it is reaching to a point now they are creating a pathway for the rising of the private sector. So the private sector now should partner with farmers to come up with ways, how can we be testing our fertilizer before we take it to the ground? Because it's proving day in, day out that the government is now not being competent enough to actually handle it. And unfortunately, it is going to be an expensive way for the farmer, because now when the private sector comes on board, it will be more of profit making. But we also look at other stakeholders like the NGOs that support farmers. They could maybe come up with a way of enabling these farmers to test these fertilizers or any other product sold to them, so to ensure that even we as Kenyans do not end up consuming unhealthy foods. Remember also the same farmer was being subjected to GMOs, and the genetic modification of the seed he's been used to propagating. And before that, the farmer at one point was independent in a way. Farmers were self-reliant. They could make their own manure, use it in the farm, produce their own seeds, propagate their own seeds. But the policies being put in parliament right now is now putting the farmer to be dependent of the national government, which is wrong, because how else will we have food security? It means the day the government will be held hostage, it means most of us will be begging for food. And that is very wrong, because ideally each individual should be able to produce their own food, healthy food. Now we are not just saying producing any kind of food. Is it healthy, quality food? That is what we are aiming at. But as years go by, we are getting less quality food, less healthy food, poisoned food. And what will it resolve? A national health crisis. So cancer cases increasing and a lot of other conditions increasing. So then now the cost of living shoots up because you cannot afford healthy food. Now even your health is affected. So it means now NHIF, now there is shift that has come on board. There's a lot of confusion when it comes to the shift setup. So, and you see even the same doctors actually striking. Shift is also one of their major concerns because they were raising queries why we will come to
the doctor's strike.
But now it shows you it becomes a whole ecosystem that is going to be affected. Remember, at the origin of for every civilization to happen, the first point of civilization is usually agriculture. So when you look at Mesopotamia, when you look at civilization in Egypt, it was agriculture was the backbone. Then it birthed every other industry. So now we're already affecting our agriculture sector. So do you think we are going to rise to the next level of industrialization within the country?
Okay, thank you so much. You've actually talked about a lot of things. But again, this will even beg another question. That if now the government itself cannot be trusted. Because we've been spoken that I think now the measures that actually we should now give is now public-private partnerships. If it goes to this extent, because this is now we're talking about agriculture. Next time it will be on health. About maybe the drugs. Next time it will be something else. And so on and so forth. Now the question here will even be that should even we Kenyans pay the tax that we are paying? Because that is a question that people are asking, actually. They're paying a lot of tax, but they cannot actually see a return on this tax.
Yeah, ideally, Parliament is the one should be doing the duty of checking the government. So were they doing their due diligence? By now, these issues of fertilizer, they would be questioning this government. There should be people behind bars. There should be people who have been fired. You know, putting the government in check. But now we are seeing we have a very lazy kind of parliament. They are, you know,
just smelling
fertilizer, and now they are sitting, drinking tea, and dragging. But people's livelihoods are being affected. So if we can no longer trust the government, then we have no choice but for the private sector coming in. Remember, even in America, that's what eventually happened. The private sector is one way or another keeps everybody on toes, because if the government cannot provide, at least be given an option of where to seek it, because it will be dangerous to only have one option. And when you asked about the issue of tax, you see, if we had a very effective parliament putting this government in check, it will mean our taxes are being utilized to the fullest. But now we're already having a parliament, a judiciary, that is sleeping with the executive. So it means the Kenyans have been left on their own. Now, when the people are left on their own, they have to look for alternatives. Remember, during Moi era, when public education was so downgraded, what happened? It led to the cropping up of private schools because they were giving an alternative, because maybe the government school, there were no good teachers, they were badly, when it comes to infrastructure. So should we all live in misery? So it means now the businessmen who now fitting into the private sector came into the rescue and introducing now the private school. But that is not the way it's supposed to be, because remember, not everybody has the same economic power to actually purchase some of these items. And food, for Christ's sake, it's one of the basic needs. And a government that is actually attacking its own food security, then it is a government that has no empathy or does not sympathize with its own citizens, and should be brought to the book until this problem is actually solved.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I want us to shift this conversation into something else. Of course, you had started the conversation.
Yes, yes.
And now that is on doctor strike.
Yes.
This is a conversation that has equally caused a debate in the public space because people are asking themselves about the doctor strike. Who actually, because you understand what exactly is at stake here when the doctors are striking and continuously. The other time was 2017. March, they were in a strike for around 100 days.
100 days.
We also had the nurses striking for over 150 days.
Yes, the nurses.
So these are some of the issues that actually are affecting us. But some of us may not know. But the many people who are actually affected because we have other people who have patients at the hospitals, and this is a conversation that I think we should and ought to have indeed. But the question here is, what do you think is indeed the problem? Let me just start that way. What is the problem with the doctors? What exactly do the doctors need? And why haven't they come to agreement?
The healthcare sector for a very long time has really suffered. Because remember, healthcare in itself is very dynamic. And sometimes people say, it has a lot of asymmetry, whereby the key players, like let's say the doctors, the healthcare workers, have key information on how the healthcare system to run. But then on the other end, the administrators, the people in leadership may not even have enough knowledge on how the health sector is. But be as it may, one of the concerns that were raised, actually the strike of doctors began in the year around 2011. But Kibaki was a gentleman and he was able to strike a deal with the doctors. Some salary was increased, but not the basic pay, but in terms of allowances, just to give them a compensation. But come the year 2017, they referred to the CBA, they had agreed with Kibaki, and now a new government which was on board, that was the Uhuru government. So you could see for every CBA, every new government that comes on board is being put at the center by the doctors. Because remember, there was the CBA that had agreed with Kibaki. Uhuru came 2017, they were striking about it. Now Uhuru sat down with them, they agreed. Now 2022 has come. You see, there's a new regime, so they want a renewal of the CBA. So one of the pertinent issues they had was about the salary pay. Most doctors feel that based on the type of money salaries they get is not adequate enough to compensate them for the work that they do. But the issue myself I usually raise is that the SRC that was set in place, one of the major roles the SRC was put in place was to come up with salary scales for all state officials and civil servants. But what did the SRC do? It also went into bed with the state. So you'll find state officers' salaries are increased, whether it's the parliamentarians, whether it is these big people, their salaries are increased. But when it comes to any civil servant, either the lawyer, either the engineer working in the county, whether it's that doctor working in the county, how comes the salary were never reconsidered? And every time it is slashing, we must live within our means, but on this other end, they're adding salary. So the other concern, as I finalize, so the other concern is the state of infrastructure within these public facilities. So you've trained a doctor for 5 years, then you have sent them to a facility where that does not have any equipment, does not have anything, and yet you want this doctor to actually provide healthcare services to the full. Now you asked what would be the effect on it. It will put a strain on the public healthcare system, one, and right now with the current doctor strike, the private healthcare system is now actually feeling the pain because everybody now is running away from the public, going into the private, to the point now even the private owners of hospitals are raising alarm and saying, hey, this strike has to end because we can no longer admit any more patients because our facilities are full. The capacity is full. So what they are, I understand where the government is coming from. We need to solve this issue once and for all. Should we every time there's a new regime create a new CBA all the time? No, we have to have a lasting. But one thing I want to pose a question is this. I think in this country we do a lot of guesswork. The LSRC should have sat down and done should have done what we call a costing of how much salary each cadre
Okay.
should actually be awarded.
Okay.
And then the cadres are brought on board and we agree to disagree.
Okay.
But you see, none of these
Okay.
have actually
Okay.
people just put blank figures.
Okay.
And that is why you're finding the CS feeling.
Okay.
If they're going to give 206,000 to intern who is a medical doctor, who is an intern, they feel it is too much, yet they're not fully licensed to be doctors.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will come to the conversation on salary
Yeah.
momentarily, actually.
Yeah.
But I want us to look at Mutai Kagwe's statement, because Mutai says that the CBA, the agreement
Yes.
of the Uruto that
Yeah.
was actually made during the Uruto term
Yes.
was made because of political promises.
Yes.
But I think this is not just something that is, I think this is not the first, may not even be the last, because we will still have political promises.
Yes.
So that people just make promises for their convenience.
Yes.
Because during this time, it was during a political season, when now the Uruto had to make a promise, and then so that they can, of course, whether they get votes or not, I don't know what the intention was.
Yeah.
But how can we ensure that we have actually sustainable agreement that because according to the statement of Kagwe, he says that some of these agreements, even the doctors themselves who have been promised this, they know that it's not possible. But yet they actually agree to enter into those agreements.
Yeah.
How can we ensure that we also have sustainable agreements
Yes.
that both parties can actually work on, and it becomes something that is actually workable?
Yeah.
Because we also have other parts which also need the same money from the government and the taxpayers. So what do you think about this? How can we make them
You see, there's a reason why the SRC was put in place, to solve such issues.
Okay.
But you see, the LRC is sleeping on its job. You get. So it is doing partially some areas when it comes to state officials and all that. But on this other end of civil, it is looking the other side. So it is the SRC, and that's why it was put in the constitution, to solve such kind of problems. Number two, we have to understand that health in itself is a political tool. So any government in power will use health as a political. Now, the doctors or the healthcare workers have understood health is a political tool. So they're also using it to their own benefit. So they're also trying to, hold the government by the balls to try and get something out of the government. They may know they may not fulfill it up to 100%, but somehow they're going to get somewhere. But for how long can this be done? Remember, these doctors or these healthcare workers are going to be paid from the taxpayer. Now, every time I ask this question, so when we decide to pay a doctor 300,000, and don't base it on the fact that they spent 5 years, we should ask ourselves, what is the output they are giving?
Yes.
Or is it the taxpayer is giving them money for free? Because you see, the reason why Uhuru even had issues with these doctors, and even I think Sakaja the other day, and even Waigoro, is because some of these doctors are employed, but when the citizen walks into these facilities, there's no doctor there. He has gone across to his own clinic. So we need to come up with a good framework to ensure it is true. I will give even the 300,000. I will even pay you 500,000 as a doctor. But this is taxpayer money. Is the taxpayer getting value for this money? Because that is where the bone of contention is. Otherwise, we'll have a bloated healthcare system, and it will not be able to sustain. And that is why you see, like Nakumicha, although even her, she has a lot of questionable issues, even surrounding her academic qualifications. They're trying to try and say we are trying to reduce the wage bill. We are trying to reduce the wage bill. But then we're asking, who has sat down and asked themselves that whatever taxpayer is giving into the healthcare system, are they getting value for their money? Or is it when you walk into that hospital, you want a surgeon, you are told the surgeon has not been seen here for the last 3 weeks, or there is no nurse available. Or like recently, Simba Arati, when he walked into a facility, he found a drunkard laboratory technician. So you see, is the taxpayer actually getting the value for that? And these are some of the discussions they should have. So it is good the healthcare workers be remunerated well, but also to ensure a sustainable economy. Remember, you said a sustainable economy, to ensure next time we're able to pay these doctors. Then we have to ask ourselves, are we getting that value for the value of the healthcare we are actually purchasing, or the taxpayer is actually going to consume? Yeah.
There is Beatrice Kairoux, of course, mentioning some very pertinent issues about healthcare. But I think when we come back after this short break, we'll be able to delve a little deeper into this conversation on health, asking about the devolution of health. Was it right? Was it a well thought idea of devolving even the health system. And of course, there are other questions around even the president. Why hasn't the president talked meaningfully about this issue? And of course, even when the president speaks, he talks about cutting costs. Is it now time to cut costs when now the doctors need this money? Not so. There's a lot of questions still, of course, which we will be able to delve deeply into. But that is not all. We also have the political beat, which will be coming right after this break. To the Bonda before is our SMS line. And of course, do not go away.
This is Art Club, where you can find us every Friday at GBS TV.
Grew up in a school where they believe since you're slim, you're fit to be an hostess. Along the way, I dated into this family where one of their brothers looked down on me because they were a pilot, and they knew I wanted to be a pilot. And since I come from a humble background, I've been raised in Kibera.
Looking at your Instagram account, girl, you're just out there. Like every day you have something new to show us, and you're very outstanding.
And everyone right now, everyone is doing content. What people don't know is it is a competitive industry, but there's space for everyone. Yeah. There are just people God will send to help you along the way. You just have to be assertive with yourself and what you want, and just go there and believe, like, if it's a calling, if God has called you to do this, He will make a way. Like right now, I'm just moving, like, I don't know when my next partnership is, but I know God will make a way. My content has been embraced so well out there, so yeah, naji-motivate, like, you know what, as long as I've done my part, God will do the rest.
Yeah. We are your home of entertainment, education, and everything all about art. Be safe, both gender, man and a woman, they have the right to be safe and not to be taken advantage of.
Oh, hey, so my name is Maina. Na opinion yangu on Valentine's Day ni it makes sense, it's a relevant day for watu wenye wako in meaningful relationships, watu wanasaidiana ku achieve their purpose in life financially, socially. So Valentine's kwangu ina make sense to watu kama hao. But kama uko na mpango wa kando, like it's a normal day.
Kipepeo was born in 2021, but the vision started in 2020 thanks to COVID. Question is, why did we choose to work with the name Kipepeo? It's about the journey of growth. From where we were born in 2021 and to where we are right now in 2023. We work with kids from grade 4. We journey with them through all the way, and we also adopt kids, students from universities. This is because when they plant a tree today, we assign them the responsibility of nurturing that tree.
Everywhere. GBS.
Welcome back to the Inside. Of course, the conversation continues. Let me talk about still health. And the question here is, of course, on the government refusal to add or listen to the doctors. The first question will be, the president has made it quite clear that we are trying to cut costs.
Yes.
Actually, he talks about we should live within our means. But the doctors are wondering, is it now time for us to live within our means when now they want their needs to be catered for? Just like the president has, because there have also been conversations about the president's continued visit from this country to the other. Of course, that is also spending. We also have the State House. So is it now this time that we only need to live within our means?
You see, the government at hand right now is actually very diabolical. You're telling people to live within their means, but on the other end, you find someone, 350 million used to buy umbrellas in State House. So you tell doctors to live within their means, then in another department, maybe under the deputy president, curtains worth 10 million. Is it really, are they also living within their means? So you see, there is no way you can trust a leader who acts the opposite. You see, you preach water, but you're drinking wine. So this, the civil servant, they sit down and say, you're telling us to drink the water, but you're drinking the wine. So it becomes now a very a state of confusion where do we draw the line? Are some people of a greater God and as well of a lesser God, you know? So, and that is why I'm saying that this thing needs to be sat and discussed thoroughly once and for all. And say, are we going to still be paying salaries that were determined in the 80s? You know, times have changed, things have changed, the population has grown. We have a lot of expertise in the country. You know, maybe that time when you pay a doctor 40,000, it used to look like a lot of money. But now we are no longer in those era. Inflation, you know, cost of living has risen. You're not expecting the same doctor who lives within, you know, most people think because someone is a doctor, they are less of a human. They're just human like you and I. It means they'll also be taxed the 2.75. They'll also be taxed and other taxes. The government is also speaking. They're also buying the same food you're buying in the supermarket. But then on the other end, are we remunerating people based on the cost that they're incurring? Remember also, even the farmers are not remunerated in the right way. So people are now having this conversation, and even I had now even teachers want also to go on strike because they are feeling if you are going to pay a doctor in turn 206, it means you as a government, you have money, then we as teachers, we should be paid more. Now I'm even hearing lawyers are also raising issues, raising alarms. Engineers within the government are raising concerns. And that's why I go back again and saying, else, the reason why LSRC was put in the constitution, you know, the beauty of this is something put in the constitution. Their work was to do these issues that are arising. But someone is sleeping on their job. Someone somewhere is just sleeping on their job. So, going forth, I think Parliament, isn't our Parliament, she's supposed to call this commission of SRC.
And now that you talk about SRC, we have seen the health officials actually raising us some questions. And one of them is that they wished to create a commission for the health. The Health Service Commission. Do you think it's viable? And will it sort some of these issues?
Unfortunate, for a Health Service Commission to come on board, we have to go for a referendum. So what I would say, unfortunately for the doctors, when the constitution was being created, they slept also they slept. The teachers were alert and awake. So when government was collecting, was collecting information, was asking questions, was going around, gathering a lot of feedback, the doctors did not participate during that time when you remember the 2010 constitution. The teachers came on board. When they were invited, the teachers came. So when the doctors and the healthcare workers were invited, they never came. So then what happened? Health was devolved. Because when the teachers came on board, they said, you cannot devolve education because of 1, 2, 3, 4 parties. Because remember, they're the technical experts here. So now after the constitution, now devolution has come, is when now the healthcare workers realize, wow, we made a terrible mistake. So the only way out for them, if they really want this Health Service Commission, is now Kenyans go for a referendum. It is included in the constitution, because you see, like TSC is included in their constitution. So what they were subjected to now is that the masses of the SRC. So we go back as SRC. And you remember when you remember the Minister of the CS for Health, Nakumicha, had to write to who? SRC, in collaboration with who? Treasury. So saying, how much are we able to? You see, but now SRC on the other hand, how did they arrive of paying an intern 47,000? They should tell us. Just like the way we are also questioning the Ministry of Health, how did you arrive to put 2.75? What formula did you use to say each household should contribute 2.7? Was it guesswork? So that's why people are saying there's a lot of guesswork going on, and we should put these people to task. But you see, the people to put these people to task is the same Parliament that is actually in bed with the executive. So the only way for it's true, the Health Service Commission will do good, but now the problem with the healthcare sector, it's dynamic. Remember, in just healthcare, there are already 11 cadres. So how will we decide this one will be the chairman, this one will be, it will be a lot of war. Unlike the teachers, where it is either you're an English teacher or a high school teacher or a primary school teacher. So education is a bit easy to streamline. But for healthcare, it's dynamic. To the point, they even sub-specialities within each cadre. For example, you'll say you're a doctor, yes, but there's a dentist, there's a pharmacist. Now, among us, the doctor, there's a gynecologist. So how do we resolve all around this? And that's why I'm saying the best way out of this whole issue is task SRC, do a thorough costing, see what is the required amount, and they do through research, not guesswork or emotions, or they decide we must punish these people. They think they went to school more than us. No, remember here also we have to put into fact that there is also an ego battle. The government says we are powerful, we are the government. The doctor says we are learned, we went to school. So that tug of war, eventually, it is like, two buffaloes fighting, but one will have to succumb. And most of the time they say, yes, in this circle, the government will always have its way. So, but now at what expense? You see, it is at the expense of the patient. It is at the expense of the taxpayer. So I believe because the Constitution stipulated very clearly, the SRC should even guide the county on the remuneration. Remember also there's the Public Service Commission, which is also involved even in hiring of these individuals. So it means that we already have structures put in place, but it's just people refusing to do their job and now creating a lot of crisis, right, left, and center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Let me just ask you this, because you talked about even the commission.
Yes, yes.
But somehow, do you think that there is a problem now that the doctors were not involved even in the constitution writing?
Yes.
And that was even beg the question that was devolving health actually a mistake? Because we have even seen in instances, even as we continue to experience this ongoing strike, some governors saying that we will fire you, and yet these are people who actually are actually striving to strike so that they can get what they want, what they think that they should be getting. So do you think that it was actually a mistake in the first place to devolve health?
I don't think so. Because remember, these people were called. It's not that they were not allowed to participate. They just refused to turn up. You see, if I invite you to a table and you refuse to appear, I will assume that you're okay. So the people who are...
But between now, the way the health is, as it is,
currently, than previous,
and previously...
The devolve is way better. Ask me why. Because some counties that have good governance, healthcare is actually doing very well than even the Kenyatta National Hospital that is here. In the case of Murang'a, we have seen how devolution has improved. Remember, when it was centralized government, areas like Moyale, Marsabit, could not even have a gynecologist on board because of marginalization and all when everything was centralized. But you see, on the other hand, also health in itself is also, I will say, it's people sensitive, it's also subjective. For example, you look at a place like Nyeri, diabetes is on the highest scale. Then you go to a place like Isiolo, diabetes is not on the highest scale. So if it was centralized, you see, they would say this one needs more fund than this one. But maybe in Isiolo, they're suffering another. So in essence of devolution, what they wanted is that each community, because when you look at how our country was divided, somehow it is into how communities had actually divided themselves. They wanted each community to own their own healthcare and also try and customize it to fit to their need, because healthcare in itself is subjective. So devolution can work. It has worked in some counties. There are some counties the doctors have not strike because they're paid salary on time, they're given promotion on time. But there are other counties where the governor decides when he's given money for salary, he diverts the funds to something else. So it means now what we are saying is that if we have a strong Senate, for example, it should be bringing to book such individuals as governors who are not paying these doctors or giving them promotions. But because already even the Senate itself, Parliament itself is also has problems, you will find governors walking away with pertinent issues similar to this. But now, with the devolution, it means if you go all the way to Moyale, you will find that you have access to healthcare services. Remember, before devolution, someone from Moyale had to come all the way to Embu to access services. You remember that? Because of how the referral system was. But now healthcare, with devolution, healthcare was brought closer to the people. So you no longer come from Kiambu all the way to Nyeri PGH. No, you're told there's Kiambu, which has has been risen up to level 5. You can actually get your own services here. It has been localized. It has been customized to what the community needs. So devolution of healthcare was good. The only issue that is actually bringing a lot of you is the human resource aspect. And the reason the human resource aspect is coming on board is because when the budgeting is done, you find a governor saying 80% of the healthcare budget brought, 80% is going to payroll. So how do we ensure that a little bit of this money goes to development? Those are the questions. And that's why we are saying LSRC should also come on board and we solve all this, and the COG. We come on board and solve this issue once and for all. Yeah.
But again, there's still a question that I will still ask on the last question.
Yes.
Just talk a bit about it. Because the other time, we just had the increase of between 7-10% last year. That is for civil servants. And of course, we expect that next year, the government will be using roughly around 138 billion in salary increments. Now, that is for civil servants. But the next financial year. So how is it different from other, like now we have doctors striking? Like, why is it that when the police are being added and these are the civil servants being, why aren't the doctors part of it? Don't we have a formula for adding?
Exactly. It still goes back to SRC. Yeah. So we want SRC aim was to harmonize salary cutting across from all the state officials all the way to the civil servants. But SRC, as we sit, is already compromised. You get, because ideally that was the reason, that was the, what is it called? That was the spirit in the constitution to bring the issue of. Remember, even before the constitution, people still had issues with salaries. Somebody would wake up in the morning and say, kesho walimu wameongezewa mshahara. So the next thing will happen, police will say, na kwa nini sisi hatuongezewi? And all of us are existing in the same economy. So the only thing is that people are not talking about SRC. SRC is being pushed on the side. But we have to go back to the guiding document, which is the constitution of this country. Because if SRC did its job, it is able to balance or harmonize all the way to the president. But now there's already a it's seeming like it is not actually an independent, but it's being influenced from the outside. So we are also asking, where is the independence of the SRC?
Thank you so much. I think let's spend the rest of the time that we have speaking a bit of politics. And the first thing that actually comes to mind is about now Raila's AU bid. And actually it has affected a lot. But again, one question that it has raised is whether Raila is torn in between fighting for the masses and now getting the AU position. Because he has to amass support from the government, which characteristically, in his character, I mean, Raila has been known to be a man who is always against the government, and he uses any slight opportunity actually that presents itself to criticize the government. And some of those instances is, number one, we have had problems in the transport sector. Several accidents. Actually, we have had like over 120 people have died since January due to roads. Even where you hear that even the transport CS will say that that is because we have tarmacked some roads, and that is a problem. Is that really a problem?
No.
So that is so Raila has not used that opportunity. The doctor strike. This is also a very critical issue, and so many, and so on and so forth. And this, to many, could be because he is yearning to get the support of President William Ruto. So, what really is in play? Is Raila torn in between? Can we say that?
He is, because actually Raila running for the AU position in a way weakened the opposition. To the point now the secretary of ODM is the one who is seeming like he's the opposition. That is Sifuna. He seems he's the one now doing the Lord's work of being in opposition. So Raila, for now, he may not be as vibrant as before, because at the end of the day, he doesn't want a backlash from William Ruto, who is already trotting across Africa, trying to campaign for the same Raila Odinga. But you see, Raila Odinga, on the other hand, is now trying to say, I have really toiled and fought for these people. Now it's my time to self-actualize. And he said, maybe the only chance I have to self-actualize because I have missed being president for so a long time, then let me maybe give it a shot and being an AU and at least leave a legacy. I was maybe president of Africa, for example. So what that does is that already the opposition is weak. Because if you look at the time they were even voting for the finance bill, the large majority of the opposition did not turn up to vote, isn't it? So eventually the UDA MPs had their way. When it came to voting against the SHIF and other clauses that had issues, the same thing happened because maybe they are being told, you know, I really need this position, so you guys have to abide with what the current government is doing. But because these same politicians, they don't to get the backlash from the people, they would rather say they were sick, so they absconded or something of the sort, just to ensure status quo. That is actually very dangerous. Woe unto us if Raila doesn't make it, doesn't win this position. I don't know what he'll come to tell Kenyans again. I am waiting to see what he'll come and tell Kenyans. I think Kenyans will be so tired and they will be like, enough, you've tried everything. Maybe it is not for you. The president is not for you. But be as it may, we are reaching to a point now, opposition will now not come from the opposition of the party like ODM and all that. Opposition now will come from the people themselves, whereby now they say, it seems we have been abandoned. UDA has abandoned us. Raila has now abandoned us. So now we have to fight for ourselves. So you will see even the issues of housing levy, it's Kenyans coming up and talking about it on themselves. Because remember, Kenyans have tried to go to parliament to lobby. They have actually gone to lobby and telling the MPs, please ensure you don't vote for these things. But then later on, the same MP vote for it, then the ODMs don't appear. So Kenyans now have realized we have actually been left on our own to hang dry. So this is now becoming a country whereby now it's like opposition and the executive now together, going at the expense of the Kenyan people. Now the Kenyans only have themselves to defend.
Okay. So also on the same note, we know of there is the party leader of NARC Kenya, the firebrand Martha Karua. And of course, in a recent interview, said that she had the mettle actually to take over from Raila Odinga. And actually, she mentions that Kalonzo Musyoka do not have the authority, or rather, do not have the wherewithal actually to take over from Raila Odinga. I don't know what it takes to replace Raila Odinga from where you are, even as we begin, as we just talk about a bit about what does it take to replace Raila Odinga, knowing that the authority that Raila had, the immense influence across the country. Do you think Martha Karua is best fit even compared to Kalonzo?
It is difficult to fill the shoes of Raila Odinga. In his essence, he's a statesman. And Kenyan politics without Raila Odinga, they are not tasty politics. So the way it is going, Kalonzo Musyoka is trying to strategically place himself to where now Raila will say Tosha. Like, you know, he's just waiting for that Tosha. Now, Martha Karua, on the other hand, is saying, Raila chose me to be his running mate, meaning between me and you, I am better placed to actually take over him. But now, you see now that is more of sibling rivalry. But now people, when Raila lost, they asked, how many votes did Martha Karua bring to the table? They even started analyzing and saying Kalonzo Musyoka was actually better placed because he has a constituent that is still somehow very intact, with the Ukambani votes and also part of Coast. And now you see now with the Gema community, if there's no strong Kikuyu leader, the Gema will easily try to incline towards the Akamba. But now when they look at Martha Karua, it's true she's a confident lady. It is true she stands for value. It is true she showed us during Moi era she could stand against Moi. During Kibaki, when she was the Minister for Justice, she was able to walk out and say she cannot deal with corruption. Now, it's true, she has very good values. But now they are asking, but where are your constituents? The same constituents that refuse to even give you governorship. So because of that, most of the ODM people, they feel she doesn't have the right to actually get the mantle. Now, then there is also the tribal issue that is coming on board. So they are saying you cannot, if Raila Odinga is a Luo, then you're saying that Kalonzo is going to take after him. To the Luos, they feel no, he should replace himself with another Luo, to the point when people try to say Sifuna should take after him. They were like, no, him is a Luya. He should be given the mantle amongst the Luya. So all this game is actually sibling rivalry within ODM. But what I foresee is that once Raila exits the stage, and the exiting the stage is not him being around somewhere and people going to visit him. Chances are is maybe when he dies and now we have buried him and now there's a gap, maybe someone else will rise and fill. But so long as Raila Odinga is existing, I think that gap cannot be filled by anyone.
May not be filled.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's talk about something a bit because we are short of time.
Yeah.
That is on Kenya Kwanza's call to actually fold all affiliate parties and have actually one party.
Yeah.
But this is not going so well with other people.
Yes.
Now that is even like Wetangula,
Yes.
Moses, who maybe for some reasons may think that no, it's not yet ripe for, or right for me to fold the party.
Yeah.
That is Ford Kenya.
Yeah.
And so that is also a problem.
Yes.
But again, another issue is that on the other side, Mudavadi may agree to fold the ANC party.
Yes.
But the question is, because they're looking to like getting the seat of the deputy party leader for UDA. But this is also against the wish of some Kikuyu leaders who think that they have actually created UDA.
Yes.
So it will only be prudent if we have one UDA deputy party leader, just like we have one party leader.
Yeah.
So all these metrics in the politics, which one will surface? Like which one will actually be enough? Which one actually will take the day? How will all this power play, even as we continue going towards 2027? Because people are actually preparing for it.
The way it's going, if I can see how Ruto is going, he's edging out the Kikuyu. Remember, the Kikuyus are the ones who propelled him to power. When they say Togo Kiraten, we'll wake up very early to vote Ruto into power. Now, because of bad business environment, a lot of taxes, Kikuyu lands are the ones being grabbed, by this same regime. A lot of torture for Kikuyu owned companies. All those factors coming in, the Kikuyus now are very much disgruntled. They're like, we voted in this government expecting that it is going to reward us. So early on in the leadership of William Ruto government, Kikuyu started revolting. There's already a revolt against him, to the point it reached to the deputy president trying to tell Uhuru Kenyatta, I apologize for how I treated you. I have realized we are being eaten by this guy. And because Ruto never forgives any betrayal, so he's now strategizing and seeing how do I bring together the Luo nation as one block, because I foresee in 2027 the Kikuyu nation may not vote for me. So what Ruto is doing his calculations. He's doing his calculation. Now, Mudavadi is very quick to give away his ANC because anyway, what does the ANC have? But you see, Wetangula on the other hand, the Ford Kenya has been a party that has been existing for a very long time. So him giving it up to be swallowed is also fearing the backlash of the people on the ground where Ford Kenya has been known to be a Luya kind of a party. But the end goal of Ruto is to consolidate all the Luya votes. Once he gets all the Luya's vote, he will easily say, I can easily dispense the Kikuyu voters, and I have this one which is solid intact. So if they revolt against me, I have a fallback. I have a fallback system. That is how he's looking at the end game. And the Kikuyus will not take it kindly. Seated, they're also revolting, forming their own parties. Yeah.
Your parting shot.
My parting shot is that we as Kenyans, we should rise to the occasion And it seems like right now we are on our own. And we should come together and try and put this government to task. As the more they tax us, then the more we'll task them. So that at the end of the day, we get value for every coin that this government is actually getting from us, so that we don't enrich people, big build houses, buy snake belts and and leather shoes only to the expense of our own livelihood as a Kenyan citizen, and for the future of our generation. Because right now, what are we going to give to the next generation? So it is for every Kenyan to rise up and actually put this government to task.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You, quite poetic words. We should rise up to the occasion and put the government to task.
Yes, after
even as
taxing.
even as they continue to tax us.
Yes.
Interesting. A very comprehensive conversation, actually, that talked about a lot of things that are quite pertinent to us. Thank you so much for that, Beatrice. And of course, you, our viewer who was listening to us, this is The Insight. You get to listen to us every Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Of course, you're watching GBS TV Africa. And my name is Eugene Ochieng Kwach. On behalf of everyone who has made this a success, we wish you a very good night, and let's meet next Friday.